We've been through things that should have broken us: trauma, loss, hardship, the kind that leaves a mark. But it also left something else, something most people spend their whole lives trying to find. I'm Misty Carson, and it's time we stop surviving and start building with it. This is the Unbreakable Advantage. My guests today know what it means to come through the dark and build something brighter on the other side. Tillerson is the founder of Tillerson Consulting Group and board president at Pathways to Healing. He has spent more than a decade inside the world of employee benefits, from the smallest startups to the Fortune 500, and he understands the ecosystem from every angle. But the reason I wanted him in this room is bigger than any resume. Sims walked through years of darkness that started young, and he came out the other side carrying a truth he lives every single day. You are not alone, and there is a light. Sims, welcome to the Unbreakable Advantage.
Thanks for having me, Misty.
I'm so excited. We actually met on LinkedIn, just for everybody who is wondering how to make connections.
Right? It's a magical place.
It is a magical place. I have met the coolest people on there. So for everyone who is meeting you for the first time, who are you and what are you building right now?
Absolutely. So you talked about a little bit. I'm a guy who's been through a lot of bad stuff, but I view myself as the survivor. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And I see myself as a writer and a creative before anything else, which I think is important for us to talk about. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm building a speaking and a writing business where I use some of my darker experiences to make other people feel seen. And on top of that, I teach lots of sales teams across the country how to be their authentic selves and win more than they are right now.
I really appreciate that. So you and I are on a similar journey. I also use written word and my experiences and my past to help people understand that what they've been through built them into something that is extremely impactful, powerful, and gives them a competitive advantage in life and in business. So I can't wait, and we'll definitely talk offline in more context about how we can support each other in that. So that's amazing. So you wear a lot of hats: founder, board president, dad, and musician, which you didn't mention, and writer, creative. What is the thread that ties all of that together for you?
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a few things. So I think that in our core as humans, we want community and we learn through storytelling. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to capture my experiences, teach anything I do. I try to do it through the lens of storytelling. And that's how I've always viewed myself. And I think I pull that red thread through everything, right? When I get on stage and speak, it's storytelling. When I write a new song, it's storytelling. When I'm trying to help my son understand why breath work is going to calm him down, even though he's four
Mm-hmm.
years old, is storytelling. So that's probably my red thread. But really, my whole mission in life, Misty, is just to make life brighter for everybody I come across. So I pull that through there too.
That's beautiful. It's so interesting how some of us who have been through really challenging things, whether they were our own decisions or they were circumstances that we did not ask for, have found this calling to serve other people and show them what is possible. And you call it the light, I call it the whisper. I want people to just fully step into who they know deep down inside they're being called to be,
Hmm.
and they're too afraid to take action towards. So just having an example like you, somebody they can see that's been through it and made it, makes all the difference in the world. So you named a season that ran from about 13 years old to 26. So take us back there, us and the listeners. What was going on underneath of all of that before you ever had a name for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 13 years old is the first time I ever tried a mind altering substance. And boy,
Hmm.
let me tell you, I love mind altering substances, Misty. So I had my first drink when I was 13.
Hmm.
And just wanted more. And as I would get introduced to new substances, I was always down to try them, and I was always interested in abusing them. And it took me a very, very long time to understand why, but my brain always moved a lot faster than the other people around me. And I was also consumed by like dark feelings that my other 13-year-old friends weren't necessarily consumed by. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than, try to figure out what's going on, because I'm kind of an all American kid at this point. I play all the sports, I date the pretty girls, I have good grades, I win everywhere, right? So rather than
Yeah.
like upset the apple cart, I'm just like, well, I can drink a few of these drinks or smoke a little of the smoke or snort something, and I can kind of shut my brain off and I don't have to think about all this stuff, and I can just enjoy. So that's what I did from the ages of 13 until 22,
Wow.
was just self-medicate with no real understanding what I was medicating. And during that time, I went to counseling. I tried antidepressants and stuff like that. But I think you probably know where this is going, Misty. I was
Mm-hmm.
unwilling or unable to talk about the cause up underneath. So
Mm-hmm.
none of that stuff that I was doing was ever going to help anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was just going to ask you. I mean, what is the root cause of all of that? What is the need, the
Mm-hmm.
drive to turn that brain off? What are you avoiding?
Yep.
Trying not to think about.
Yeah. So I have complex PTSD
Mm-hmm.
as a result of significant childhood sexual abuse, and then the resulting narcotics addiction also contributed to worsening that PTSD. So, what that looks like
Mm-hmm.
for me is severe anxiety, panic attacks, agoraphobia, which is like when people don't want to leave their house or be around people, and depression. So,
Mm-hmm.
mine shows up in all of those ways, but I did not have a realization of the abuse I endured until I was 22 years old. I was just sitting having a conversation with someone about my childhood, and all these memories started rushing back to me. But my brain and my willingness to numb my brain for years, like, protected me from those thoughts for
Mm-hmm.
such a long time.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting to me how we've never met in person, but we've talked several times on LinkedIn, that we have similar goals, similar ideas, how we want to help people, and very similar things that happened to us when we were growing up as well. I talk a lot about my sexual trauma and the sexual abuse that still to this day tickles my life in different ways, especially when we're talking about how I interact with a partner,
Mm-hmm.
how I receive love, what kind of boundaries I allow or don't allow. I I'm sorry that that happened to you. And I'm sorry that it happened to me, but then the part of me too is, but look at the good work that we can do now to help all the rest of the people. So I appreciate you sharing that. So you said years of substance abuse. You mentioned the complex PTSD, which a lot of people don't know the difference. So I would love if you could explain to the listeners as well the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. It went untreated for a long time. And when you look back, what was the story you believed about yourself in those years?
Just that there was something wrong with me
Hmm.
is the biggest thing. Because I was dealing with these feelings and I was different than everybody else, and I thought that it was just because I was different. I never put together that I had had these experiences. So that was the first part of it. And then when the realization came, it was all this questioning of myself. Did this really happen? Are you making it up? Are
Hmm.
you exaggerating it? Right? And then it was, okay, I don't want to tell anybody because uh my abusers were a family member, a babysitter, and a church official. All people that are in positions of power, that makes it not that easy to come forward and talk about what happened. So I think all those things together pushed me to, you know, pushed me to feel this way, to feel like it's my fault
Mhm.
and it is what it is.
Mhm. Yeah, I went through something similar. It's like, what did I do to bring this on? How could I have done something differently? I must deserve it in some way. This is normal. This is what everybody my age is going through. Mine was also a family member, also somebody that I babysat for, which is very interesting. A lot of people don't know this either, but people who go through sexual abuse are often abused by more than one person. It's
Yeah.
like they can sense it on you, like it does something to just the way and your energy. It's like a dog or a vulture smelling the wounded animal, right? That's
Hmm.
easy prey. It's like we wear this neon sign. So I felt the same. When I did finally get the courage to say something, I was told I wasn't allowed to tell anybody because that person's protection was more important than my protection. And that was also something that I still have therapy around, and I'm almost 50 years old. I mean, what do you do with that, right? So reconciling those things and then trying to move on and move past them.
Yeah.
So you said there was a moment that the ground shifted for you in the form that you had filled out, where staying where you were stopped being an option. What did that turning point look like for you?
Yeah. I think I've had a few of these turning points in my life.
Hmm.
But I'll talk about two major ones. I think the first is when I was 22. I'll never forget this moment. I was sitting in my truck outside of a dorm at Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina. I was talking to my girlfriend at the time when all these kind of waves of emotion started coming back to me about what had happened, and I did something dumb. Right, I went and saw my drug dealer, and I went and got super super fucked up so that I wouldn't have to
Oh,
remember what was going on. But after
yeah.
that point, I couldn't put those memories back in the box. So that was when I started taking therapy seriously and clinical intervention seriously, and started really looking at myself and saying, "Hey, I don't want to." I wasn't to the point where I was like, "Hey, I want to get sober," but I was like, "I don't want to have to call my coke dealer every time a
Mhm.
bad thought comes in my brain, right? I want to have more
Mhm.
control." So that was
Mhm.
a pivotal moment for me. I think getting sober 7.5 years ago was an extremely pivotal moment for me. But the most pivotal here recently has been late last year was when I really, really made the decision to shift my story from one of heartbreak and pain to one of what I call dominion, my rise in dominion over this life, regardless of what
Mhm.
I've been through.
Ugh. There's something so I just got the chills. There's something so beautiful about taking control of the narrative and shifting your perspective. So it's not any longer like I went through all these things, and you said earlier you're a survivor. I would even encourage you to call yourself a thriver, right? That it's not even that anymore. It's just something that was and no longer isn't, and you know those that's just not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's beautiful. Recovery is almost never a straight line, and I know this. I have unfortunately, some friends that I went to school with and that I've known my whole life who, one of them in particular, who has been in and out of rehab, and it's so hard to watch her, and still now at 47, 48 years old, still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And similar story to us, a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse. What did the hard, unglamorous work of getting to the other side look like from a day-to-day basis for you?
Uh, it was gnarly. So I can take you back. Alcohol has always been like gasoline for me. It's never been my favorite substance, but it's always the one that makes everything worse. So I was a heavy drinker for a long time. I was a heavy cocaine user, and about the time I was 22, I got diagnosed with a chronic back injury. So before I got an insurance, I was in agriculture, and I had a pretty bad back injury. And I had a doctor prescribe me 120 Vicodin a month and 30 muscle
Oh my
relaxers month.
God.
So I got addicted to prescription painkillers. So what my sobriety journey looked like was stopping those painkillers. And tactically, what that looked like is sleeping on the bathroom floor of a tiny house that I lived in by myself for about 4 days, sweating it out, puking it out, the kind of sick that you wish would kill you. And then about a year later, I quit cocaine, cold turkey again, relapsed once, but was pretty clean after that. And then my alcohol use skyrocketed to fill the hole. So then I was just like a very, very heavy daily drinker. I was in benefits sales, so I was always at happy hours. Nobody worried about that. The bad part was when I would leave the happy hour and go to my house and drink a 750 of liquor by myself or whatever.
Wow.
So I kept that up for a long time. And it wasn't until it was October 25th, 2018 that I had my last drink. But a lot of the work over those years was literally just me staying on this side of the dirt, like staying on this side of the dirt long enough that I could work through all the stuff that I had been through. I just still wasn't ready to do it. I was still in too much
So
pain.
I just want to touch on one of the things that you said. I had a partner who was addicted to opioids and also was an alcoholic. We were together for almost 10 years. And it's terrible watching that transition, watching somebody do exactly what you said, laying on the floor, look like they're dying, going through all of the things. It's also terrible to watch them have a little bit too much and then wonder what's going to happen and what do you do about that, and do you betray them and call somebody and then everyone's going to know our secret, and all of the things that you carry along with that. But one of the things that you just said that I really want listeners, especially if you're going through what Sims had went through, whether you're the person in it or a family member who is watching it and trying to decide what to do about it, it doesn't have to be all at once. Like you just said, you gave up this and then you gave up that, like, and then you were ready to give up the last thing. It's not always like a all or nothing. Sometimes you have to do the journey in pieces, and there is nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's what's needed, because with all the other overwhelming feelings, you need to do it in phases. Would you agree
Yeah,
with that?
I would. And I would say, and this is not a clinical opinion, this is my opinion.
Same.
Harm
I'm not a
redu-
clinician either.
yeah, harm reduction is always a positive thing. So in our culture, we're obsessed with abstinence, right? Like when you're a kid, you get taught, well, never have sex until you're married, right? And
That's right.
how often does that work? Not very often. Harm reduction is a win, especially if you're in the midst of substance abuse. You don't have to feel like, if alcohol is killing you, you don't have to feel like, all right, well, today is the last day I ever have a drink. Reducing your consumption to eventually get
Hmm.
to a point where you can quit is a win, and it's something to be
Yes.
proud of. And Missy, I would argue that if I had tried to give up all of those substances all at once, I would have died.
Yes. Just from the sheer withdrawal of it all.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so. You can't die from opioid withdrawals, but you can sure die from alcohol withdrawal.
yeah, it's terrifying. It's just terrifying to watch somebody to go through that stuff. You said the season built extreme resilience in you, which is the word I use to describe myself. It's tattooed on me, actually.
Yeah.
Something you would never trade, even though you would never want to live it again. What is that? How and what, in what ways does that resilience show up for you in your life today?
It shows up in simple ways. I think that I can experience I can experience hardship that people that haven't been through the things that I've been through cannot experience in the same way.
Mm.
But it also just offers me a lot of perspective. Um, I think about how happy. I'll give you an example. I was in Florida 2 weeks ago for work, and I woke up at 6 in the morning and went for walk on the beach and just stood in the surf and just breathed and meditated and just like experienced this incredible gratitude. And that gratitude is only possible for me because of what I've been through.
Mhm.
And it's only because, like, after thinking about, hey, Sims, this is what your life looked like 10 years ago, that I can enjoy these simple, simple moments. So I think it's resilience, but I also think it's an enhanced capacity for gratitude because
Mhm.
I have so much perspective, so much more perspective than I would as a 34-year-old white guy, had I not experienced the things I experienced.
Yeah, that is the platform I stand on, and I will die on this hill, that I truly believe that when you've been through those types of things, regular everyday rejections and problems that we go through seem so insignificant. I call it our coined it pressure immunity. We can just take so much pressure and still perform. It doesn't even catch your breath. And then what
Hmm.
you were talking about, the clarity of what's important to you. Super easy to suss out what matters and what doesn't because you've had to really reach for the things that were important. And then you mentioned standing there in the surf and the meditation, being really present in the moments, having that power to just lock everything else away and concentrate specifically on where you are in that moment. I think it's really difficult for people who haven't been through the fire to
I
have it
think
at
so
the
too.
capacity or the level that you can. Yeah, 100%. So you also said you know you can overcome any obstacle. I agree. When did you first believe that about yourself and not just say it? Because a lot of times we say things, but then in deep down we're like, oh, maybe I think so.
Yeah, I've uh I've believed it more and more as I've gotten older. I think defining moments have been hard moments. My most recent would be getting let go from my last corporate job. So that was about a
Mm.
year and a half ago, and that was when I recognized all this work starting to come to fruition because I was pissed, but I wasn't afraid. I was just like, I'm gonna run my business and I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. And since that time, literally my entrepreneurial toxic trait, Misty, is that I think I can do anything. And so I do.
I love that. I don't think that's toxic at all. I think that's part of what we've been through. Literally, I talk about this too. When you're trying to figure out how you're going to put food on the table and you have two toddlers at the age of 19 and no financial support, no family that you can lean on, just got your GED, you're making barely any money. I mean, how are you going to pay for daycare? Those things are so trying. If you can make it through that, you absolutely can do anything. So it doesn't mean that the voice doesn't still pop up in your head and be like, do you
Yeah.
deserve this? Are they going to like you? Are they going to see right through you? Do they think you're damaged? All those things, of course, run through my mind, but I've learned how to tell them to shut the fuck up, which
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do as much before. So interesting. So you've seen this industry, which I'm in the insurance industry as
Hmm.
well. Well, I was. I actually left my job on Wednesday, and I am going
Woohoo.
my own thank you. My own entrepreneurial journey. I'll be talking about that in my solo today. But you've seen this industry from every angle: carriers, enrollment, benefits tech, the smallest startups, and the biggest companies. How did your story change the way you see all of it?
I think the biggest way is that it's like given me this passion for mental health and mental fitness. And so when I speak at events about mental health and I've got CFOs and CPOs in the room, the way it shifted for me is just like, hey, you've got to think about your people as people.
Mm.
And I've got to be better about that. We all do. But like this, we get something in our mind when we think about mental health, when we think about addiction. Most people picture a certain type of person, right?
Mm.
And the truth of the matter is that this war is everyone's war. Is something
Mhm.
that can affect everybody. You take your top seller, me, right? It can be your CEO, it can be your CRO. It doesn't matter. this affects all of us, and we could use a little more compassion
Hmm.
in this industry. We could also use a little more nuance in this industry, I think. Um, but I think that my inability to see people problems without the people
Hmm.
in them is the thing that makes me impactful in this space.
Hmm. I really appreciate that. One of the things that you touched on or that you were circling the wagon around, I would love to just hit on and make sure the listeners caught that, is that you do think of a certain person when you think of addiction. You think of the people who are homeless, the ones that are like on a street corner, right there trading everything. And those people do exist. But the majority of people who have an addictive issue or challenge or something that they're fighting are people who go to work every single day, who have families at home, who
Mm-hmm.
show up and still function often at a very high level there because they're risk takers, especially people in our industry. There's a lot of risk in being a fully commissioned
Mm-hmm.
employee. And when you're a risk taker in one area, you often are a risk taker in many areas of your life. So I don't think that I agree with you. I don't think the perception of what addiction looks like is truly the face of the majority of addiction.
Yeah, totally agree
It's
with you.
sad. People do need to see people for who they are and not be ignorant that there are people who are struggling every day at those corporate places who
Mm-hmm.
could really just use some empathy to be seen, to be asked, to be offered. That it makes the biggest difference for sure. So you're in a preventative mental health work now with Spirance. Did I say that correctly?
Experience, yeah.
Spirance. There is a straight line from what you lived to what you build. What does it mean to you to help people get support before they hit the rock bottom that you had to hit?
Yeah, so I say this all the time, and I think it's hilarious as the person that has been on like every SSRI and SNRI on the market and who's been in and out of therapy for a very, very long time. The most impactful skill I ever learned for my mental health is breath work. And I
Mm.
didn't learn that skill until like 2 years ago. So, what I'm really passionate about right now, I mentioned it about my kids, but I think all of us, everyone on planet Earth could benefit from mental fitness. So these are the skills and the practices that we have to bring us back to center, to help us manage our emotions, to help us understand our
Hmm.
emotions. Because the truth of the matter is this, Misty: 23 to 25% of people have diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illnesses. The rest of
Mm.
us are just living in a really difficult world and trying to get through it. But we all need skills so
Mm.
that we don't end up in the 23 to 25%. Because I don't know about you. I value clinical care a lot, but I'd be happy as hell if I never had to go to therapy ever again in my life, if I got to that point.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've gotten myself pharmaceutical free. I'm 18 months pharmaceutical free from
Good
antidepressants and
for
stuff
you.
like that. Um, Thank you. That was a very important thing for me to be able to get off of those eventually. But that's the whole thread here, is that I want people to be able to develop the skills to manage their emotions, to be able to develop resilience. I want people to develop those things without having to experience the dark stuff me and you experience. And
Mm.
it starts with really simple stuff like me teaching my 4-year-old, when he has a really big feeling, quick BAMO breath. BAMO breath is my friend Dr. Seth Hickerson from My Steady Mind. It's his breath. Super simple. 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 seconds out through the mouth before
Mm.
we react to a stimulus. Little things like that can make all of us function so much better and show up so much better for the other
Mhm.
people in our lives.
Mhm.
When we can
Mhm.
control the 6 inches between the ears, we can keep ourselves from getting to crisis a lot of the times.
Yeah, I have coaches. I also still go to therapy, and I agree with you. If I can someday not have to go anymore, that would be amazing, and just be able to do it all on my own. My coaches do breath work a lot with me, breath work, and then also brushing, getting things, just pushing it off of you. tapping to calm myself down, getting into coherence, breathing, getting your heart regulated. And those things help a lot. I've noticed I've started doing it with my teenage daughter who's still at home as well. She has anxiety attacks really bad. And so I'm just like, okay, deep breath in, deep breath out. And you can see them, like visually see them
Mm-hmm.
start to calm down. Doesn't mean it goes away. They still aren't sure how they're going to navigate the
Yeah.
challenge that got them there in the first place. But at least now they're thinking with a clear mind. It's one of the first people I ever listened to because I didn't have really good role models as far as when I decided I wanted to start living a different life, right, and vibrating at a different energy, was actually Brooke Castillo. So Brooke Castillo teaches that your thoughts become your emotions control your actions, and your actions control your consequences. So if you can control your thoughts, the rest of it all follows suit. So that's been,
Yeah.
I think about that almost
So
every single day.
the way I like to think about that is preceding that thought is some stimulus. And the
Hmm.
break, I didn't make this up. It's something I've learned over the years, but the break between the stimulus and the thought, that breath, that is where we control where that thought goes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we kind of break the pattern of, you know, somebody cuts me off in traffic, so I think that person screwed me over on purpose. My emotion is angry. My action is to throw him the
Flip them
bird,
off. Mm-hmm.
right? But if somebody cuts me off in traffic and I take a breath, maybe my reaction then is, man, they really weren't paying attention. I hope whatever's bothering them settles down so they don't
Mm-hmm.
cut somebody else off that maybe won't react as well as I did.
Yeah. Or
And
hope
that's
to
kind of
God
the
they don't
tale of
have an
the two. Yeah.
emergency.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or you're hoping they don't have an emergency. I think it
absolutely.
was Dwyer. He wrote in a book, I think it was him. I just remember the story. He said that he was on a bus and a bunch of kids were acting rambunctious, and the dad had him. I think there was like 4 children. They were acting crazy and he was getting really annoyed. And after about 15 minutes on the bus, the gentleman looked at him. I'm pretty sure it was Dwayne Dyer. Looked at him and said, I'm really sorry about the way my children are behaving. Their mom just passed away and I don't know what to do for them right now. And he said in that moment, he was like, oh my God, I'm such an ass. Like, I'm here annoyed and I have no idea what's going on in that person's life. And I think you're right. That I have never thought about that, about just the breath between, always the thoughts, but what happens before the thought? What are our immediate gut reactions, our primal reaction based on our
Mm-hmm.
experiences in our past? Just taking that beat can make all the difference in the world. So you put modern sales and mental health on the same stage, which most people would never ever think to do. Those two belong together for you, and I agree, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
tell the listeners why you believe they belong together on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, one of the places this came accidentally is I experienced clinical burnout after my best sales year in my career. And my
Mm,
therapist forced me to quit my job. So part of that thread is me talking about, hey, when you think mental health and substance use, think about the top salesperson in your company is probably them. To remind people that just because people perform doesn't mean anything about their mental health. But the other thing is that I have gotten very interested over the last few years in performance coaching and like watching how athletes prepare, how performers, musicians prepare. And I like think about, College World Series is on right now. If you turn on the
hmm
College World Series and you watch a batter step into the batter's box, the first thing that you're going to watch them do, they're going to go, right? They have this like little routine, and we call it superstition. Some of it is, but most of it is this idea that they're prepping their body for extreme performance, for extreme focus, right? And we can laugh and say, well, we're in sales. We're not, I'm not about to clock 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but we're operating a very, very, very stressful profession, right?
hmm
And it's asinine to believe that we can just show up with whatever the hell has been going on in our life, that we can just show up and perform. right?
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, if I manage this early in the morning, I show up to my job better. I'm going to show up for my prospects better, for my clients better. I'm going to show up for my friends, my family, my kids better as well. But it all starts
Mm-hmm.
with taking care of this first. And you talked about it in the early part of our conversation. We're talking about the dark stuff we've been through. Getting told no all day long, every day, or getting told nothing all day long, every day, it weighs on everyone. It weighs on everyone, right? Me and you, we've been through really hard stuff, so we have perspective. But I
Mm-hmm.
still have to manage my mentality and my mindset throughout the day, or the no that I get to start my morning derails everything else because I internalize it and go, wow, this person said no to my product, so they're saying no to me. I must not have any value. How am I going to do outreach again, right? And I spin in a future trip. But most elite sellers that I know manage their emotions really, really well and can come back to
Yes.
center really, really easily and can
Mm-hmm.
detach from the outcomes around our jobs.
Yes. I agree 100% with everything that you just said. It does still, it brings out that imposter syndrome in your mind a little bit, right? It tickles it some. And I happen to call that the loudest liar in the room, which is our own mind telling us that we don't belong, we don't deserve it, we don't have anything unique to offer. And we have to talk ourselves out of that at times. Other times you're just clicking and you're like, screw that guy. Like, I am moving on to the next person. Like, it's no big deal. But every once in a while, especially if you are vulnerable, you're feeling worn out, your immune system is down, you have to walk yourself through the evidence that you've done this before and get yourself away from that and back into the frame of mind to pick up the phone and do it again. Breath definitely helps. Taking a deep breath, going for a walk, being like, okay, your brain is spewing bullshit at you. They're calling the win the anomaly and the failure's the truth. And we know that's not accurate because here we are, number one, number two, number three salesperson, or even they hired me, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all of that. So you told me the person that you want to reach the most is the younger you. If 13-year-old Sims could hear this episode, what do you need most for him to know?
That the things that happened to him before were not his fault, but how he chooses to
I feel that.
respond and take care of those things are his fault.
Mm.
I think that for me, I spent such a long time trying to reckon with the things that happened to me when there is no reckoning with that, with evil.
That's right.
I still don't understand what what happened to me, right? I don't understand why a person would do what they did to me. And now I know that part's not important. But that was the part I was focused on when I was a kid. And I wish I had had a role model who could have really, really conveyed to me that I was going to be okay. I would have needed another man who had been through what I had been through. And then if I could have learned some of these skills we're talking about, like gratitude and breath, to manage things. But yeah, I spent a long time putting myself through a lot more pain because of the pain I had been through as a kid.
The reality is you're never going to get a why, because people who make those types of choices, there's no reconciling what they've done. There's no reconciling why me, why you, right?
No.
There's nothing in that space. You did say something though, and I want to just say this to the listeners out there. You said if you would have had somebody who'd been through those things and was already healed, who would have been available to you. So anyone who's listening right now who has already worked through and has been through that type of trauma and abuse, if you've ever thought that what you've been through needs to be your secret shame or that there's no value in it that you can give to other people, we're telling you here as two thrivers sitting here right now, that's untrue. I agree. If somebody could have just said to me, you're not the only one, which is a big reason why I'm doing this podcast and why I'm having people on like you. So many of us, 67% of the population, Sims, has been through really hard things when they were children. And I want to talk about this stuff. Nobody talks about it. Everyone talks about it in theory or like high
Hmm.
level, but nobody really talks about the dirty ugliness, and then what our brains still do to us. How you have to overcome those things, the thoughts that still get in there, and how do you work through them. And so if anyone's listening, mentor somebody, see how you can help. Belong to a nonprofit that serves this particular subset of at-risk youth or children. Make a difference in some way for sure. So we're coming to the end, and I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed your time, because I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on. I have 3 signature questions at the end that I like to ask every single guest. And then I would love to, after, I'm going to see where everybody can connect with you. So
Yeah.
what does the unbreakable advantage mean to you, Sims?
I mean, I think that it means turning our pain into power, right? We talked about the shift in my story, and the shift in my story is like break or build. Do I want to look at the bad stuff that happened to me as a crutch or as this thing that I make my identity my whole life? Or do I look at it as like, man, I wish that didn't happen, but now I have this superpower over everybody around me. Like I am more
Mm-hmm.
resilient, and I can win as a result of that. So that's the advantage to me, is just a perspective shift in the pain.
Love, love, love. So my tagline is, you were not broken, you were built. And you literally just said that. And I talk about turning my pain into power all the time, my pain into purpose. You just gave me a little plug, didn't even know it. So super beautiful. Thank you. What did you have to let go of to become who you are today?
I had to let go of a lot of things. I had to let go of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that has experienced making any kind of like healthy lifestyle change, if you have people that are still trapped in that unhealthy lifestyle, they can't go
Mm-hmm.
with you. And they don't want to, and you don't really want them to either. Like the easy way for me
Mm-hmm.
to describe this is like my old drinking buddies that I thought were my really good friends. When I quit drinking, they didn't want to hang out anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that sucked at the time. But now I recognize we're in 2 different places in our lives, and I wanted to go somewhere that they could not come with me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So people is a big one. Think old versions of ourselves is another one. I don't believe that we ever kill old versions of ourselves. I think they all sit up here and hang out together.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to let old versions of myself die to make room for these new versions. And I think that that's something we don't talk about enough, even when it comes to healing, is that anytime you make a big change in your life, it's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
We're resistant to change as human beings. It is going to hurt. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to leave people and habits and places and things behind. I mean, it was a year before I could walk into a bar after I got sober. And I
Yeah.
love bar food.
Yeah, I can see the conundrum. No, I appreciate that very much. I really appreciate your answer. And I think that happens multiple times throughout as you continue
Yeah.
to grow. I have purged and cleansed my circle of people multiple times, and I can feel myself getting ready to do it again. You have to sometimes let go of things and people and places to make space for what you're ready for your life to look like today. And that is really hard for a lot of people. A lot of times people get stuck just because of that, because they
Mm-hmm.
are not willing to let go of that familiarity. And sometimes that's even our families, right? You have to spread the distance and step away from that. And that can be very terrifying. It's one thing to
It
overcome your own mind. It's another thing to let go of everything you've ever known.
it certainly can be. I mean, I didn't dig into this, but I mean, my immediate family, so my parents and my little brother, and then our families that spur off from that, that's the only family that I talk to anymore because of other
Hmm.
folks' roles and perpetuating abuse. And I went scorched earth and
Hmm.
burned every one of those bridges, and I feel fine with it.
Good.
But I
I've
can't
had to
ever
do
go
the
back.
same. Yeah, you can't go back. And you can't look back either, because looking back just makes you focus on what you've lost and not what you've gained. You have to ever forward, always what's coming and how do you feel now with the burning bridges behind you, right? That don't even look. You turn into salt. Don't do it. So what do you still need to, last question, what do you still need to let go of to become who you want to be tomorrow?
I think my consistent challenge is seeing my own value as a human being. So I think this is a challenge for a lot of high achieving people. This idea that I have value when I produce, right? And it could be in the work, it could be signing a huge new client for one of my clients, but it could also be doing the laundry at my house, like whatever it is, that my value comes from producing. So when I get tired, when I get vulnerable, and when I get anxious, I try to maintain control by producing more, right? So my big challenge for myself is recognizing that when I wake up in the morning, before I've done anything for anyone, that I have value. And that if I don't do anything for anyone that day, that I will continue to have value.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I don't know if you, probably not, because I think this book was marketed towards females, but there's this book called Worthy by Jamie Kernley, and she talks about the difference between self-worth and self-confidence. And I love it. It's like 3 pages, one-liners, like this is what self-worth looks like, but this is what self-confidence looks like. And then she also wrote this beautiful poem about she's not crazy, she's just first. And I keep that on my bedside, talking about breaking generational patterns and everyone giving her a hard time about it. But she had this calling, this knowing, she calls it a knowing, that she was meant for more. And I think it is really hard. I'm very similar to that. For me, if I can just achieve something, or I can win something, or I can outwork you, outpace you, then that's it. Like I have accomplished everything I need to showcase that I deserve to have value in this space. And it's hard to separate the two. And I'm still working through that as well. I really have loved this conversation. There are so many people who are going to resonate with what you shared, what we talked about. These are the conversations I believe we need to have more and more and more of. I would love to see how people can connect with you. So if you will let that people in the audience or the listeners know, how can they find you? How can they hire you? What does that look like? That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I'm chronically on LinkedIn as the only social media I have. You can find me by searching Sims Tillerson on LinkedIn. To my knowledge, I'm the only person with that name on the social media platform. The second way is to look for my website, positivereplies.xyz. And what I do right now, I help good people and good teams grow. So I do one-to-one coaching for folks that need better outbound sales. And I do team coaching for teams that want to be impossible to ignore in this attention economy.
Beautiful. Sims, thank you again for being so vulnerable, so open during our time together. And you and I will connect on LinkedIn and see how we can collaborate outside of this podcast and support each other some more. Thank you so much for everyone who is listening. Remember, are you going to belong or are you going to become? Until next week, we'll see you there. You showed up today, and that already says something about who you are. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you listen and connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. We were not broken. We were being built. Until next week, keep becoming.